Hello guys, and welcome to another Etheria restart video. The newest SSR Animus Oryes has just been released, and after looking through his kit and testing how his mechanics actually work together, I think he's a much more interesting character than he initially appears. He's not your typical healer, he's not a traditional cleanser, and he's definitely not a straightforward damage dealer. Instead, he is built around something that can be incredibly valuable in the current meta, turning enemy debuffs into an advantage for your own team. So today I want to break down exactly what he does, how I'm building him, and most importantly, where I think he stands in the current meta, and what kind of teams can actually make him shine. Let's start with his passive mechanic, Crepuscular Ingress, because this is basically the foundation of his entire design. Oryes increases the extra effect RES of all allies by 50%. More importantly, whenever an ally triggers extra effect RES for the first time each turn, that ally gains 10% turn meter. This is a really interesting mechanic because he isn't simply giving your team resistance and calling it a day. He's actively rewarding your team for resisting debuffs. And this is where I think Oryes gets much better in the right matchup. Against teams that constantly throw debuffs at you, every successful extra effect RES check can effectively become additional turn meter. So, the opponent can actually end up feeding your team more turns simply by trying to control you. His S1, Predatory Reeve, is a single target attack, dealing 220% damage, with a 40% chance to extend the duration of non-control debuffs on the target by one turn. This isn't the main reason you're bringing Oryes, but it's a very useful piece of utility. If you've already landed something like Defense Break, Speed Down, or another important debuff, he has a chance to make that debuff stick around longer without needing to spend another turn applying it. Then, we get to his S2, Sunken Gloaming, and this is where he starts becoming a proper control unit. He hits all enemies for 260% damage, with a 70% chance to apply both attack accuracy down and speed down for 2 turns. That's a really strong combination because you're reducing the enemy's ability to land their own debuffs while simultaneously slowing them down. And there's another important detail here. At max level, his S2 also reduces its own cooldown by 1 turn. So once you start cycling him properly, you're not waiting forever for this AoE debuff package to come back. Now, his S3 is where I think his identity really becomes clear. Fatal Knight Orison purifies 3 debuffs from all allies, then applies counterattack rate up and life leech for 2 turns. And for every debuff that he purifies, he also applies heal over time. So imagine you're fighting a control-heavy team that has managed to stack multiple debuffs across your entire squad. He can come in, wipe those effects away, give your team counterattack rate and life leech, and then add healing over time based on how many debuffs he removed. That means the worse your team gets debuffed, the more value you can potentially extract from his cleanse. And because his S3 also has a cooldown reduction at max level, this isn't something you're only using once per fight. With the right setup, he can repeatedly stabilize your team while simultaneously providing offensive utility. Now let's talk about my build, because I think this is where people might build him incorrectly. I'm currently running Swift Rush, Strive, and Swift Smite. My Oryes has 347 speed, 125% effect accuracy, around 2301 defense, and over 43,000 HP. And yes, I'm deliberately going extremely fast. I don't want him sitting there as a slow defensive cleanser. His entire kit rewards him for taking turns frequently, applying his debuffs, cleansing the enemy's pressure, and triggering that extra effect RES turn meter mechanic. So speed is the first thing I'm prioritizing. I'm also running 125% effect accuracy because his S2 is too valuable to ignore. If I'm investing in an AoE speed down and accuracy down, I want those debuffs to actually land consistently against relevant targets. For his shell, I'm currently using Moon Bunny. Moon Bunny gives the owner immunity at the start of battle and provides mortal essence stacks over time, starting with 1 stack and then gaining 3 additional stacks every 3 turns before the owner's turn. It also fits very nicely into the kind of longer fights, where Oryes wants to keep cycling his kit, rather than simply winning the battle in the first rotation. So, where does he actually stand in the current meta? Personally, I don't think he's a character that replaces your existing universal supports. If you're expecting another aerial who you can throw into practically anything, I don't think that's what he is. Instead, I see him as a specialized anti-control support who becomes extremely valuable when the enemy's strategy revolves around debuffs. And that's important. Against a team that doesn't care about debuffs and simply destroys you with raw damage, he isn't necessarily going to be your best option. But against a composition that's constantly applying debuffs, reducing your speed, controlling your units, and trying to win through status effects, he can become an absolute nightmare for the opponent. His extra effect Oryes buff makes your entire team harder to control, and every successful resistance can generate turn meter. His S2 gives you additional offensive disruption, while his S3 turns a heavily debuffed team into an opportunity to cleanse, heal, and gain additional offensive utility. The other thing I really like is that his kit scales with how aggressive the opponent is with debuffs. That's a very healthy design for a PvP support, because you're not simply bringing him for one isolated ability. His entire kit starts making more sense when the enemy is actively trying to control your team. So my verdict on him is this. I think he's good, but he's not universally broken. He's a character that I would rate much higher in the hands of someone who understands team building and matchup selection. If you build him fast enough, give him enough effect accuracy to consistently land his S2, and pair him with a team that benefits from extra effect RES and turn meter generation, he can provide an absurd amount of value. And honestly, that's what I like about him. He's not a brainless character where you press one button and automatically win. You actually have to understand what the enemy team is trying to do and recognize when he can completely invalidate that strategy. So, if you're looking for a fast anti-control support with cleansing debuff disruption, team resistance, turn meter manipulation, and some surprisingly good offensive utility, I definitely think he deserves a spot on your radar. He's not going to replace every support in the game, but in the right matchup and with the right setup, I think this guy can be extremely annoying to fight against. And that's exactly what you want from a character like him. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.